My name is Samantha Parker, 34 years old, and I've never been more terrified than the moment that package arrived. It was Jason's birthday, my husband of 6 years, and I should have known my parents would pull something like this. When I tore away the brown paper and saw that antique gold case, my blood turned to ice. The pocket watch. The cursed heirloom that had followed my family for generations. I actually felt the color drain from my face as Jason reached for it. "Don't touch it!" I screamed, my hand shooting out to stop him. Before I continue this nightmare, where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear more unbelievable true stories like mine. Trust me, you'll want to hear how this all unfolded. I grew up in a small Connecticut town called Lakeside, where everyone knew everyone else's business, and most families had lived there for generations, including mine. My parents, Howard and Patricia, weren't just history enthusiasts. They were obsessed collectors. Our Victorian home resembled a cluttered museum, more than a place where people actually lived. Glass cabinets lined the walls, filled with everything from Civil War medals to hand-carved figurines. Every item had a story, my father would say, and those stories were the lifeblood of our family. Among all these treasures, certain pieces took on almost mythological importance. The pocket watch was chief among them. According to family lore, it had belonged to my great-grandfather Frederick, who acquired it in the 1920s during his travels in Europe. It was a beautiful piece, 18-karat gold with intricate engravings and a crystal face that seemed to catch light in unnatural ways. But beauty wasn't the watch's defining characteristic. Death was. The first incident happened shortly after Frederick brought it home. He died unexpectedly in his sleep just 3 months later. The watch passed to his son, my grandfather Thomas, who suffered a fatal stroke 5 years after receiving it. Then came my father's brother, Uncle Lloyd. I was only 8 years old when he visited for his 40th birthday. My parents presented him with the watch as a gift, ignoring the whispers about its history. I still remember that evening with painful clarity. We were all gathered in the living room. Uncle Lloyd had just unwrapped the watch, his face lighting up at its craftsmanship. He slipped it into his vest pocket, stood to make a toast, and then collapsed. His face went gray, his body rigid. The paramedics pronounced him dead from a sudden cardiac arrest before they even loaded him into the ambulance. That night changed me. I'd witnessed firsthand what everyone else tried to dismiss as coincidence. My parents were especially adamant. "Objects don't kill people, Samantha," my father would say whenever I brought it up. Lloyd had a heart condition. It was his time. But I knew better. I'd seen the watch's golden glint as it peeked from Lloyd's pocket while the paramedics worked on him. I'd heard its faint ticking even after they took him away. As a child, I developed what my parents called unreasonable fears about our antique collection. I refused to touch any heirloom with a history. I kept my distance from the glass cabinets. I had nightmares about objects coming alive at night, haunted by the spirits of their previous owners. My parents sent me to therapy, but all the psychological explanations in the world couldn't erase what I'd seen. The moment I turned 18, I fled to college as far away as possible, the University of Washington in Seattle. There, surrounded by technology and innovation rather than dusty relics, I finally began to breathe. I studied art history, ironically enough, but with a focus on modern and contemporary works. The past held no allure for me. It was during my sophomore year that I met Jason Harris. He was studying computer science, a field grounded in logic and problem solving. Where I was intuitive and emotional, Jason was analytical and rational. We balanced each other perfectly. When I finally told him about my family's cursed watch, he didn't mock me like others had. Instead, he listened, then gently suggested that trauma often creates associations that feel supernatural, but have psychological explanations. I loved him for that response, for taking my feelings seriously while offering an alternative perspective. When we married after graduation, we made a pact. We would build our life looking forward, not backward. No family heirlooms, no dwelling on superstitions or curses. We would create our own traditions. For nearly a decade it worked. We established careers in Seattle, me as an art curator for a prestigious gallery, Jason developing software for a major tech company. We made a comfortable home, traveled, and maintained only minimal contact with my parents. They visited occasionally, bringing small, meaningless gifts that I could accept without anxiety. I thought I'd escape the shadow of my family's obsession with the past. I was wrong. The past wasn't finished with me yet. 6 years into our marriage, Jason and I had established a comfortable routine. My career at the Westlake Gallery had advanced to senior curator, specializing in contemporary American artists. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spent my days surrounded by valuable objects, carefully cataloging and authenticating them, yet maintained a personal life deliberately free of meaningful possessions. Jason's work at Horizon Software had him developing algorithms that predicted future trends. The past is just data, he often said, useful for predicting what comes next, not for dwelling on. His logical approach to life had helped me manage my anxiety over the years. When old fears surfaced, he would calmly walk me through the facts, separating emotion from reality. Our marriage wasn't perfect, whose is? But we had built something stable and loving. We complemented each other in ways that mattered. I brought emotional intelligence and creativity to our relationship. He contributed structure and rational thinking. We had created a life that felt secure, far removed from the superstitions that had dominated my childhood. Then, about 3 years ago, something shifted in my relationship with my parents. My father had a minor heart attack. Nothing life-threatening, but enough to make mortality suddenly real. During my visit to Connecticut, my mother pulled me aside, tears in her eyes. "We've missed so much of your life, Samantha," she said, holding my hands tightly. "We don't want to waste any more time." It was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever received for the childhood they'd given me. After that, our communication increased gradually. Weekly phone calls, holiday visits that didn't end in arguments about family traditions. They seemed to finally respect my boundaries around the antique collection, never pressing me to take any pieces or participate in their obsession. In retrospect, I should have recognized the warning signs. About 6 months before Jason's birthday, my parents began showing an unusual interest in him. They sent small gifts, a leather wallet, artisanal coffee beans from a local Connecticut roaster, a first edition book on computer programming history. Nothing alarming, nothing antique. Just thoughtful presents that demonstrated they were paying attention to his interests. My mother's questions became more specific too. During our calls, she would casually ask about Jason's upcoming birthday. What were we planning? Did he collect anything? Was there something special I thought he might appreciate? "He's not really into collecting things," I answered carefully. "Jason prefers experiences to objects." "Everyone should have one meaningful heirloom," she insisted. "Something to pass down someday." The comment sent a chill through me, but I dismissed it. Surely they wouldn't. After all these years of respecting my boundaries, then the nightmares started. 3 weeks before Jason's birthday, I began dreaming about the pocket watch. In my dreams, it would appear in unexpected places, on our dining table in Jason's pocket, clutched in his hand as he collapsed just like Uncle Lloyd had. I'd wake up gasping, drenched in sweat. Jason would hold me, assure me it was just stress from an upcoming exhibition at the gallery. "You haven't even thought about that watch in years," he reasoned. "It's just anxiety manifesting because of your deadline." I wanted to believe him. But when my cousin Audrey called out of the blue, my dread deepened. "Sam, I thought you should know," she said hesitantly. "Your parents were asking about the watch at the family reunion last month. They wanted to know if anyone had seen it since it was stored in your grandmother's attic." My hands trembled as I held the phone. "What did you tell them?" "That, as far as I knew, it was still in storage where Grandma Laura put it after Uncle Lloyd died. Sam, they seemed really determined to find it. Is everything okay?" I called my parents immediately after hanging up with Audrey. My mother answered, her voice overly cheerful. "We just thought it might be time to take inventory of the family heirlooms," she explained when I confronted her. "Your father isn't getting any younger, and these things should be properly documented. You're not planning to send the pocket watch to Jason, are you?" I asked directly. Her pause lasted a beat too long. "Of course not, sweetheart. We know how you feel about that old thing." I didn't believe her, but what could I do? Accuse my parents of lying? Warn Jason about a threat he didn't believe existed? When I expressed my concerns to him that evening, his patience visibly strained. Sam, we've been through this. There is no curse. Your uncle died of natural causes. Even if your parents did send that watch, which they won't, it would just be a valuable antique, nothing more. You don't understand, I insisted. I was there. I saw what happened to Uncle Lloyd. You were 8 years old and traumatized by witnessing a medical emergency. Of course it seemed supernatural. He rubbed his forehead, a sign he was growing frustrated. I thought we were past this. I thought therapy helped. It did, but then trust the progress you've made. Don't let old fears control you again. We went to bed that night with an unusual tension between us. As I stared at the ceiling, unable to sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was heading our way, ticking closer with each passing day. Jason's birthday fell on a Saturday that year, which gave us the whole day to celebrate. We had planned a quiet morning at home, brunch at his favorite restaurant overlooking Puget Sound, then kayaking in the afternoon if the weather held. I had bought him a new smartwatch, a deliberate choice that embraced modern technology rather than antique timepieces. The sleek device with its health monitoring features and seamless connectivity represented everything the pocket watch wasn't. Forward-looking, practical, beneficial. I had almost convinced myself that my fears were unfounded when the doorbell rang at 9:17 a.m. Our regular mail carrier, Dwayne, stood on the porch with a small package requiring a signature. "Special delivery from Connecticut," he said cheerfully, handing me his electronic pad to sign. Just made it in time for the weekend. The package was small, rectangular, and heavier than its size suggested. My stomach knotted as I read the return address. Howard and Patricia Bennett, 42 Maple Street, Lakeside, Connecticut. My parents' handwriting was unmistakable on the brown paper wrapping. "Who's it from?" Jason called from the kitchen, where he was brewing coffee. "My parents," I answered, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. I stood frozen in the entryway, the package feeling like a live bomb in my hands. "That was thoughtful of them," Jason said, appearing in the doorway with 2 mugs. His smile faded when he saw my expression. "Sam? What's wrong?" I couldn't explain the certainty I felt. The weight of the package, its dimensions, the timing, it all pointed to one thing. My parents had found the pocket watch and, despite my explicit fears, had sent it to Jason. "I don't think we should open this," I said. Jason set the coffee mugs down on the entry table. "Why not? I have a bad feeling about it." He sighed, the familiar sound of his patience wearing thin. "Is this about the watch again?" "Sam, we've talked about this. Even if they did send an antique, which would be valuable, by the way, it's just an object. Please, Jason, let's just send it back unopened. They're your parents. And it's my birthday. At least let me see what they sent before rejecting their gift." He held out his hand for the package. "It's probably just another book or something from that Connecticut coffee roaster I liked." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to be wrong so badly. But as I reluctantly handed over the package, my body tense as if preparing to flee. He carefully removed the brown paper wrapping to reveal a small wooden box with brass hinges. The box itself looked antique, its wood darkened with age, the brass tarnished to a dull gold. "See? Not a watch. Just a nice box," Jason said, though his voice lacked conviction. I said nothing, watching as he lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, lay exactly what I had feared. The pocket watch. Its gold case gleamed in the morning light as if it had been recently polished. The chain coiled beside it like a thin golden snake. The room seemed to darken around me. Blood rushed from my face so quickly that my vision blurred at the edges. I felt cold, then hot, then cold again. As Jason reached to lift the watch from its velvet nest, my body moved on instinct. "Don't touch it," I cried, lurching forward to snatch the box away. The watch tumbled onto the coffee table with a heavy thud. It lay there, face up, the second hand ticking steadily despite having been untouched for years. Jason stared at me, shock and concern warring on his face. "Sam, you're scaring me. You're white as a sheet." "That's it," I whispered, pointing at the watch without touching it. "That's the watch that killed Uncle Lloyd. The one I told you about." "It's just a watch," Jason said, but I could hear uncertainty creeping into his voice. He'd never seen me react this way before. "It's never just been a watch," I said, my voice steadying as anger replaced fear. My parents knew exactly what they were doing. They knew what this would do to me. "Don't wear it, but we also don't destroy what might be a family heirloom until you've had time to calm down and think clearly." I wanted to argue, to insist that the watch leave our home immediately. But I recognized that Jason was already compromising more than he believed necessary. He didn't believe in the curse. How could he? He hadn't seen what I had. "Fine," I agreed reluctantly. "But use gloves to pick it up. Don't let it touch your skin." Jason gave me a look that clearly questioned my sanity, but humored me by grabbing a pair of kitchen gloves. As he carefully placed the watch back in its box, I called my parents. The call went to voicemail, which was probably for the best. The message I left was short and cutting. "How could you? After everything I told you, after what I saw happen to Uncle Lloyd. Don't call us back until you're ready to apologize." When I hung up, Jason was watching me with concerned eyes. "The watch is in the safe," he said. "Now can we please try to salvage what's left of my birthday?" I nodded, but the damage was done. The watch might have been locked away, but its presence had already come between us, ticking like a time bomb in our once peaceful home. My parents called back that evening. Jason and I had gone through the motions of celebrating his birthday, brunch overlooking the Sound, a shortened kayaking trip, but a tension hung between us that no amount of forced smiles could dispel. When my phone rang and my mother's name flashed on the screen, I almost didn't answer. Jason gave me an encouraging nod from across the living room. "You should talk to them," he said. "Get some answers at least." I accepted the call but put it on speaker so Jason could hear. My mother's voice sounded overly cheerful, as if she hadn't received my angry voicemail. "Happy birthday to Jason. Did our package arrive in time?" "Cut the act, Mom," I said coldly. "You know exactly what you sent and what it means to me." There was a pause. "The watch is a valuable antique with historical significance. Nothing more." "Then why send it now? After all these years of respecting my wishes?" My mother's voice softened. "We thought enough time had passed, sweetheart. We thought you'd moved beyond those childhood fears. The watch belongs in your family now. It's part of healing the rift between us." "Healing the rift?" I nearly shouted. "You think sending the object that traumatized me as a child would heal anything?" Jason stepped in, taking the phone. "Howard, Patricia. I appreciate the sentiment behind the gift. It's clearly a valuable piece. But given Sam's feelings, perhaps we could discuss a different family item that holds less emotional baggage." My father's voice turned condescending. "Jason, as the rational one in this relationship, I'd hoped you could help Samantha see reason. That watch has been appraised at over $15,000. It's not just sentiment. It's an investment we're passing to you." I took the phone back. "We don't want your investment. Would you wear a $15,000 watch that might kill you?" I snapped. "It won't kill anyone because it's an inanimate object," he replied evenly. "But I understand it upsets you. What I found chilled me to the bone." The watch's design matched a limited series crafted in Vienna around 1897. Only 12 were made, and most had been lost to time. One, however, had a documented history that caught my attention. It had belonged to a Viennese banker who died suddenly in 1898, then to a British diplomat who suffered a cerebral hemorrhage in 1912. The watch was considered lost during World War I, only to resurface in an Italian collection in 1921. The dates aligned perfectly with when my great-grandfather Frederick had traveled through Europe. But most disturbing was a notation in the margin of a 1919 auction catalog, written in faded ink. "Caution advised. Previous owners met unfortunate ends. Local superstition suggests malevolent properties." I printed everything, creating a file of evidence. When I finally went to bed around 3 a.m., Jason was sleeping soundly. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, knowing the watch was just down the hall, locked in our safe but still too close. The next morning, I presented my findings to Jason over breakfast. Without antibiotics and modern medicine, lifespans were shorter. What about Uncle Lloyd? That wasn't the 1800s. That was in our living room and I saw it happen. Your uncle had a pre-existing heart condition that no one knew about. The autopsy confirmed it. Jason set the papers down and reached for my hand. I'm worried about you. You haven't been this fixated on the watch in years. Because it wasn't in our house. I pulled my hand away. Jason, please. Just trust me on this. Instead of answering, Jason stood up and walked to the safe in the home office. My heart raced as I followed him. He punched in the code and removed the wooden box. What are you doing? I asked, panic rising. Proving a point. He opened the box and, before I could stop him, picked up the watch with his bare hand. I gasped, stepping backward instinctively. Jason dangled the watch by its chain, then deliberately placed it in his pocket. See? Nothing happened. No lightning strike. No heart attack. Just a watch, Sam. My hands trembled as I fought the urge to snatch the watch away from him. Please put it back, I whispered. I'll wear it today and you'll see that nothing happens. Then maybe we can move past this. His tone was gentle but firm. That decision sparked the worst fight of our marriage. I called him reckless, dismissive, arrogant. He called me irrational, childish, obsessive. Words flew like weapons, striking deeper than either of us intended. By evening we weren't speaking. I slept in the guest room, listening for any sound of distress from our bedroom, terrified that I'd find Jason cold and still in the morning. He was alive at breakfast, but something wasn't right. His face looked slightly gray, his movements slower than usual. When he reached for the coffee pot, his hand trembled almost imperceptibly. Are you feeling okay? I asked cautiously. Fine, he said shortly. Just didn't sleep well. But together they formed a pattern that raised the hair on my arms. Worse were the changes in Jason. The occasional tremor in his hands. The dark circles forming under his eyes. The way he would sometimes pause mid-sentence, looking momentarily confused. When I expressed concern, he brushed it off as stress from a major project deadline at work. But I noticed how he would press his hand to his chest when he thought I wasn't looking. How he would steady himself against the wall when standing up too quickly. How his appetite had diminished. It's the watch, I said one evening, after finding him taking ibuprofen for what he claimed was just a headache. Drop it, Sam, he warned. Not everything is about the damn watch. Then why won't you take it off? Just for one day. See if you feel better. Because this has become a power struggle that's not actually about the watch at all. It's about you not trusting me to make my own decisions. He had a point, but so did I. The watch never left his pocket. And Jason's health continued its subtle decline. 7 days after the watch arrived, I woke to the sound of a crash from our bathroom. I bolted upright in the guest bed where I'd been sleeping all week. The digital clock read 3:17 a.m. Jason? Still ticking steadily while my husband's life seemed to be winding down. When the paramedics arrived, they moved with practiced efficiency, checking vitals starting in 4. Loading Jason onto a stretcher. One of them, a woman named Tina with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner, listened as I tried to explain about the watch. He's been carrying it for a week, and his health has been declining. I know it sounds crazy, but we focus on treating symptoms, not causes, she interrupted gently. You can tell the doctors your concerns at the hospital. I grabbed the watch from the floor, hesitating only briefly before dropping it into my pocket. I needed to keep it close, not because I wanted it, but because I needed to prevent it from doing further harm. The emergency room was a blur of activity. Jason was whisked away for tests while I filled out paperwork with shaking hands. When the doctor finally came to speak with me, his expression was puzzled. Mrs. Harris, we've run a full cardiac workup, blood tests, and a CT scan. We can't find anything conclusively wrong with your husband. His symptoms suggest some kind of poisoning or reaction, but we're not detecting any known toxins. Has he been exposed to any unusual substances? Changed medications recently? I took a deep breath. Doctor, I know this will sound strange, but I believe an object he's been carrying is causing this. An antique pocket watch with a history. To his credit, the doctor didn't immediately dismiss me. He listened without interruption, his expression thoughtful. I can't speak to supernatural explanations, he said finally, which was more than I'd gotten from anyone else. I thanked him, then asked to see Jason. My husband lay in a hospital bed, connected to monitors that beeped steadily. His color was slightly better, but he still looked nothing like the vibrant man I knew. When his eyes fluttered open as I took his hand, relief flooded through me. "Sam." His voice was weak. "What happened?" "You collapsed in the bathroom. You're in the hospital." He tried to sit up then winced. "My chest feels like someone's sitting on it. Jason, the doctors can't figure out what's wrong. They're running more tests, but..." I squeezed his hand. "I think it's the watch. You've been carrying it for a week, and you've gotten progressively worse." To my surprise, he didn't immediately dismiss me. Instead, he looked thoughtful. "Where is it now?" "I have it." Patted my pocket. "I didn't want to leave it at home." "Can I see it?" Reluctantly. "This thing has survived world wars and changed hands multiple times. Simply throwing it away might just pass the curse to someone else." He was right. I needed more information. Not just folklore and family stories, but the complete truth about the watch's origins and history. There was only one person who might know. I called my grandmother Laura, my father's mother and the family historian. At 87, she rarely left her assisted living facility in Hartford. But her mind remained sharp. I hadn't spoken to her in months. I was afraid this would happen someday. "Your father never should have kept that thing, let alone passed it on." "Grandma, what do you know about it? Where did it really come from?" She sighed heavily. "What I'm about to tell you has been kept secret in our family for 3 generations, Samantha. Your great-grandfather Frederick didn't acquire that watch during his European travels. At least, not legitimately. He stole it." My breath caught. "Stole it? From where?" "From a special exhibition at a museum in Vienna. Frederick was working as a curator's assistant for a traveling exhibition. The watch was part of a collection of items with unusual histories. The head curator had documented each piece, including accounts of strange occurrences and deaths associated with them. So the museum knew it was dangerous? They considered it a curiosity, an item with an unfortunate history that made for good stories to attract visitors. But the curator who cataloged the collection took the legends seriously. He kept detailed notes about the watch's origins. What did he discover? According to his research, the watch was crafted by a Viennese metallurgist named Alexander Volkov in the late 1890s. Volkov was fascinated by alchemy and the occult. Rumor had it that he incorporated metals from melted religious artifacts believed to be cursed. Some stories even suggested he used human bone ash in the mechanism. I shuddered, glancing at the watch on Jason's hospital bed. The curator's notes indicated that Volkov created 12 watches, each supposedly imbued with different properties. 11 were accounted for over the years. The 12th, the one Frederick took, was said to be the most dangerous. It supposedly drained the life force of its owner to extend Volkov's own life. "That's horrifying," I whispered. "Why would Frederick steal something like that?" He didn't believe the stories. He saw a valuable antique that he could sell for profit back in America. But after he brought it home and began experiencing health problems, he changed his mind. By then, it was too late to return it without admitting to theft. So he passed it to his son instead? His own child. People do terrible things when they're frightened, Samantha. Your grandfather Thomas didn't know the watch's full history when he accepted it. By the time he learned the truth, he was already ill. My mind raced. "Grandma, how do we destroy it?" "There must be a way. I don't know about destroying it, but after Lloyd died, I did some research of my own. I found references to a neutralization ritual in one of the curator's journals that Frederick had stolen along with the watch. I still have the journal in my safe deposit box." "Can you tell me what it says?" "Not over the phone. These are specific instructions that must be followed exactly. But there's someone who might be able to help you. A professor at the University of Washington named Elijah Bennett. He's a historian specializing in occult artifacts. I corresponded with him years ago about the watch. If he's still there, he might know more." I jotted down the name, a spark of hope igniting. "Thank you, Grandma. One more thing. Did you tell my parents any of this when they asked about the watch?" Her voice hardened. "I told them everything. They chose not to believe it, just as Frederick did. Your father inherited more than his name from that man." After I hung up, I relayed everything to Jason. His face grew more troubled with each revelation. So my birthday gift was a stolen cursed watch made with occult materials, which your parents sent knowing its full history. He shook his head in disbelief. And I thought my family had issues. Despite everything, I laughed. A small strained sound but genuine. It was the first moment of lightness we'd shared in days. What do we do now? Jason asked, eyeing the watch warily. First, we get you better. Then we find Professor Bennett and learn how to neutralize this thing before it hurts anyone else. Jason's condition stabilized once the watch vanished, confirming my suspicions about its effects. The doctors remained puzzled but pleased with his improvement. They wanted to keep him overnight for observation, running additional tests to rule out any lingering concerns. You should go home and rest, Jason urged, seeing the exhaustion etched on my face. I'm feeling better already. I'm not leaving you, I insisted. Besides, what if the watch comes back? Sam, it's gone. And we need to figure out where it went before it affects someone else. What if the watch hadn't gone far? What if it had found another victim right here in the hospital? I paused by the nurse's station on Jason's floor. Excuse me, I asked the nurse on duty. A middle-aged man named Derek according to his badge. Has anyone turned in a gold pocket watch in the last hour or so? My husband lost one. Derek shook his head. Nothing's been turned in. But I did see one of the orderlies admiring an old watch earlier. Thought it was odd since we're not supposed to wear jewelry during shifts. My pulse quickened. Which orderly? Is he still here? Andy Griffith, not the actor. Derek smiled at his own joke. Skinny guy, early 20s. His shift ended about 20 minutes ago. Do you have contact information for him? It's really important. Derek hesitated. I can't give out personnel information. Please, I lowered my voice. That watch might be dangerous. Contaminated with something. My husband's been sick since handling it. Whether it was my desperate expression or the mention of contamination that convinced him, Derek relented. He pulled up employee records on his computer and scribbled an address on a notepad. He lives in the Parkview Apartments on Rainier Avenue, apartment 302. But I didn't give you this. I thanked him profusely and rushed out to my car. The Parkview Apartments turned out to be a rundown complex about 15 minutes from the hospital. By the time I arrived, it was past 9 p.m. I hesitated in the dimly lit parking lot, suddenly aware of how reckless I was being. Chasing after a potentially cursed object to a stranger's apartment, alone at night. I called Professor Bennett's office at the university, hoping he might still be working late, but got his voicemail instead. I left an urgent message explaining the situation and my grandmother's referral, then added my cell number. With no other options, I approached the building's main entrance. The security door was propped open with a brick, not reassuring for safety but convenient for my purposes. I took the elevator to the third floor and found apartment 302 at the end of a narrow hallway with flickering fluorescent lights. I knocked firmly. No answer. I knocked again, louder. Still nothing. Andy, I called through the door. My name is Samantha Harris. I think you might have found a watch at the hospital today. Silence. Then a sound, a soft thud like something falling. Andy, are you okay in there? More silence. Then a weak voice. Help. My heart raced. I tried the doorknob locked. I looked around frantically, then remembered seeing the building manager's office on the first floor. I rushed downstairs and pounded on the office door until a heavy-set man in his 60s answered, clearly annoyed. Building manager's hours are 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, he grumbled. It's an emergency, I explained breathlessly. I think one of your tenants is in medical distress. Apartment 302, Andy Griffith. The manager's irritation shifted to concern. That kid's been a good tenant. Never any trouble. He grabbed a key ring from inside his office. Let's check on him. We hurried back upstairs. The manager knocked loudly, announcing himself before unlocking the door. The apartment was small and sparsely furnished, with the lived-in messiness of a young bachelor. In the center of the living room floor lay Andy, unconscious. Clutched in his right hand was the pocket watch. Call 911. I instructed the manager, dropping to Andy's side. His pulse was weak, his skin clammy. exactly like Jason's symptoms but more advanced. Carefully, I pried the watch from his fingers. His hand was locked around it with surprising strength for someone unconscious, as if the watch didn't want to let him go, or he didn't want to let it go. Once freed, the watch seemed heavier in my palm than I remembered. I quickly wrapped it in a tissue from my purse, avoiding direct contact with the metal. The paramedics arrived within minutes, the same team that had responded to our house earlier, including Tina. Recognition flashed in her eyes when she saw me. "Another one?" she asked quietly as her partner attended to Andy. I nodded grimly. "The watch. It moved somehow." Tina didn't question this impossibility. She simply focused on her patient, helping her partner load Andy onto a stretcher. "We'll take him to Seattle General, same as your husband." "I'll follow you there," I said. "I need to make sure this watch doesn't go anywhere else." As the ambulance pulled away, my phone rang. An unfamiliar number. "Mrs. Harris? This is Professor Elijah Bennett returning your call. I received your rather urgent message about a watch." Relief washed over me. "Professor Bennett, thank you for calling back. The situation has escalated. Could we meet tonight?" "Tonight?" He sounded surprised but not unwilling. "I suppose I could meet you at my office. University Hall, room 422. I need to stop at the hospital first, but I could be there in about an hour." "I'll be waiting." "And Mrs. Harris? Don't let the watch out of your sight, but don't keep it too close either." After seeing Andy safely delivered to the emergency room, I drove to the university. Professor Bennett was waiting outside the building, a tall, thin man with a salt and pepper beard and wire-rimmed glasses. He looked exactly like what I'd expect a professor of occult history to look like. "Mrs. Harris," he greeted me, extending his hand. "I've been expecting to hear from the Bennett family for years. Laura's well, I hope." "As well as can be expected at 87, I answered, following him into the building. "She's the one who suggested I contact you." His office was what Jason would call organized chaos. Books stacked in precarious towers, papers covering every surface, artifacts displayed on shelves along the walls. I removed the watch from my purse, still wrapped in tissue, and placed it on his desk. Professor Bennett didn't touch it. Instead, he opened a drawer and removed a pair of white cotton gloves and a small magnifying glass. Once protected, he carefully unwrapped the tissue and examined the watch from every angle. "Yes," he murmured. "This is definitely Volkov's work. The 12th watch. I never thought I'd see it." He pointed to tiny markings engraved inside the case. "These are alchemical symbols. And this hallmark here confirms it was made in Vienna in 1897. My grandmother mentioned a neutralization ritual." Bennett nodded. "Laura contacted me almost 30 years ago with questions about the curator's journal. I've spent decades researching Volkov and his creations. The ritual is complex but doable. What do we need?" "Items that represent the elements. Earth, air, fire, water. Something silver, pure silver, not plated. Holy water if you can get it. And most importantly, a secure location. Sometimes physical manifestations of energy. Nothing dangerous if you're prepared, but not something you want witnesses for." "How soon can we do this?" "I need to gather the materials. Tomorrow night would be the earliest." He glanced at the watch. "Where will you keep it until then?" "With me," I said firmly. "I'm not risking it finding another victim." Bennett frowned. "That's dangerous. The watch has already demonstrated an ability to influence people and apparently to move itself. It will fight the neutralization process. I don't have a choice. I can't let it hurt anyone else." He considered this, then reached into a cabinet and removed a small wooden box lined with what looked like lead. "Keep it in this. It should help contain its influence." As I placed the watch inside, my phone rang. "Jason." "Sam? Where are you?" "The doctors are discharging me." "What?" "It's almost midnight." I insisted. "All my tests came back normal and I feel fine now." "Where are you?" I explained about finding Andy and meeting Professor Bennett. Jason listened intently. "I'm coming to you," he said. "Text me the address. We'll face this together." 30 minutes later, Jason arrived at Bennett's office, looking remarkably recovered. The three of us developed a plan. We would perform the ritual the following night at an abandoned church Bennett knew of in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. It had been deconsecrated years ago but retained its spiritual significance. The ritual must be performed by someone with a connection to the watch, Bennett explained. Someone it has affected. That's me, I said immediately. Jason shook his head. We'll do it together. I was the one who wouldn't listen to you. I need to be part of ending this. Professor Bennett looked between us. It's not without risk. The watch will resist. It may cause physical symptoms, hallucinations, attempt to influence your thoughts. We understand the risks, Jason said, taking my hand. But Sam was right all along. This thing is dangerous, and we need to stop it before it hurts anyone else. As we left the university with the watch securely boxed, I felt a strange mix of dread and determination. Tomorrow, one way or another, our nightmare would end. The abandoned church loomed against the twilight sky, its Gothic architecture both beautiful and foreboding. Stained glass windows, dulled by years of grime, filtered the last rays of sunset into muted colors across the dusty floor. Professor Bennett had arrived ahead of us, setting up what we needed for the ritual in the former sanctuary. Jason squeezed my hand as we approached the heavy wooden doors. Are you ready for this? I nodded, though my stomach churned with anxiety. As ready as I'll ever be. Inside, Bennett had arranged candles in a wide circle. At cardinal points around the circle sat 4 small bowls, one containing soil, another water, the third a burning incense. I must emphasize the importance of completing the ritual once started. No matter what happens, what you see, hear, or feel, do not break the circle or stop the incantation until it's done. Place it on the silver platter, Bennett instructed. Then both of you stand on either side, holding hands across the watch. We did as he directed. The moment the watch touched the silver, I felt a chill sweep through the church, as if all warmth had suddenly been sucked away. Jason's hand tightened around mine. Did you feel that? He whispered. I nodded, my breath visible in the suddenly frigid air. Bennett began reading from the text, his voice echoing in the empty church. The words were unfamiliar, some ancient language mixed with English phrases. As he spoke, he instructed us to repeat certain lines, our voices joining his in the ritual. Elements 4 bind this power. Earth and water, fire and air, cleanse this object of despair. The candles flickered wildly though there was no breeze. The watch on the platter began to vibrate slightly, its second hand spinning backward, then forward, then stopping altogether. By silver pure and intentions clear, break the bonds of curse and fear. A high-pitched ringing filled my ears. My vision blurred at the edges. Beside me, Jason swayed slightly, his face paling. I gripped his hand tighter. Stay with me, I urged. Something's wrong, he gasped. My chest. Bennett continued the incantation, his voice rising. The connection tries to reassert itself. He explained during a pause. Fight it, Jason. Reject its hold on you. Jason straightened with visible effort. I'm okay. Keep going. The temperature dropped further. My teeth chattered. But I forced myself to focus on Bennett's words, repeating the phrases as instructed. The watch's vibration intensified until it was practically jumping on the platter. Then came the voices, whispers at first, indistinct and echoing, growing louder until I could make out words. Thieves, mines, return what was stolen. Do you hear that? Asked, my voice shaking. Bennett nodded grimly. Volkov's spirit, or what remains of it. The watch houses a fragment of his consciousness. Keep going. The whispers grew more threatening, more personal. I heard Uncle Lloyd's voice, then a stranger's, perhaps the orderly, Andy, their words overlapping in a cacophony of accusations and pleas. Jason's face contorted in pain. I can't breathe, he gasped, his free hand clutching his chest. He's having the same symptoms, I cried to Bennett. We need to stop. No. Bennett's voice was commanding. That's what it wants. We're close. The final phase. He instructed us to place our free hands on either side of the platter, not touching the watch but forming a complete circle around it. As we did, the whispers rose to screams. The candles flared impossibly high, their flames nearly reaching the ceiling. Return what was taken. Return it to me. Now, Bennett shouted over the din. Together. We recited the final words of the ritual. Bound no more to human soul, your power breaks, your purpose whole. Return to metal, simple and plain, never to cause suffering or pain. As the last word left our lips, the watch emitted a high-pitched whine. The crystal face cracked with a sound like a gunshot. A pulse of energy knocked us all backward, breaking our circle. Candles extinguished simultaneously, plunging the church into darkness. For several seconds we lay stunned on the cold floor. Then Bennett's flashlight clicked on, its beam swinging to find us. "Are you all right?" he called. I sat up slowly, checking myself for injuries. "I think so. Jason." My husband was already getting to his feet, helping me up. "I'm fine," he said, sounding surprised. "Actually, I feel better than fine. Like a weight has been lifted." Bennett directed his flashlight to the center of the circle. The silver platter lay there. The watch upon it transformed. The once gleaming gold had dulled to a tarnished brass. The hands had stopped. The crystal face, though cracked, no longer seemed to catch the light in that unnatural way. "Is it over?" I asked. "Is it safe?" Bennett approached cautiously, examining the watch without touching it. "I believe so. The curse appears to be broken. It's just a watch now, a broken ordinary watch." The relief that flooded through me was so intense that my knees nearly buckled. Jason caught me, pulling me into a tight embrace. We stood like that for a long moment, holding each other in the flashlight's glow. "What should we do with it?" Jason asked finally. "I suggest donation to a secure collection," Bennett replied. "The university has a sealed archive for historically significant, but potentially problematic artifacts. It would be studied but never worn or handled directly." "That seems fitting," I agreed. "Let it be remembered as a warning, not used as a weapon." We carefully packed up the neutralized watch and Bennett's ritual materials. As we stepped outside, the night air felt fresh and clean after the charged atmosphere of the church. Stars twinkled overhead, and for the first time in weeks, I felt I could breathe freely. 2 days later, after confirming that Andy the orderly had made a complete recovery, Jason and I met with my parents. The conversation was difficult but necessary. "You knowingly sent Jason an object that you believed might be cursed," I said, my voice steady despite my anger. "An object connected to Uncle Lloyd's death and numerous others. How could you do that?" My father shifted uncomfortably. "We didn't believe the stories." "Not really. But you knew I believed them. You knew what seeing that watch would do to me. We thought exposure therapy might help you move past your fears," my mother offered weakly. "That's not your decision to make," Jason interjected. "And I nearly died because of it." My parents exchanged glances. "We never meant to cause harm," my father said finally. "We just wanted our daughter back. The family traditions were always so important." "Some traditions deserve to die," I replied. "Some secrets should be brought to light and dealt with, not passed down to harm another generation." They had no response to that. Our relationship would need time to heal, if it ever could. But I felt stronger for having confronted them, for standing in my truth even when they refused to acknowledge it. In the weeks that followed, Jason and I rebuilt our connection, stronger than before. He approached my intuitions with new respect, no longer dismissing my feelings as irrational. I started therapy to process the childhood trauma that had shaped so much of my life, learning healthier ways to address my fears without letting them control me. For his part, Jason became more open to possibilities beyond his logical framework. "I still believe in science," he told me one evening as we sat on our deck watching the sunset over Puget Sound. "But I've expanded my definition of what's possible." We celebrated his birthday properly a month after the watch incident. My gift to him was simple. A modern smartwatch we had chosen together. No history, no baggage. Just a useful tool for our present life. "To new traditions," I toasted, raising my glass. "To trusting each other," he responded, clinking his glass against mine. That night, lying in bed together, I reflected on the profound lesson I'd learned through our ordeal. Trust yourself, even when others doubt. Question traditions that cause harm. Confront the past so it doesn't control your future. Most importantly, I learned that breaking free from toxic family patterns isn't betrayal. It's growth. The true inheritance worth passing down isn't objects or traditions, but honesty, respect, and the courage to chart your own course. The pocket watch now sits in a sealed university collection, a relic of the past rather than a threat to the future. Its power is broken, its story a cautionary tale. And my story? It's still being written, free from the shadow that haunted my family for generations. Have you ever experienced something others refused to believe? Something that made you question your own sanity until you were finally validated? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that trusting their instincts isn't crazy. Sometimes it's the sanest thing you can do. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, some gifts come with hidden costs, but the greatest gift is always the truth.